The television studio buzzed with energy as Mystery Inc. made its way through the neon-lit corridors, an exclusive invitation bringing them for a special visit to the most famous show of the moment. Fred led the group with enthusiasm, Daphne walking beside him, observing every detail with sharp eyes. Velma adjusted her glasses, analyzing the modern equipment that contrasted with the classic design of the building. Shaggy and Scooby, always hungry, had their eyes fixed on a table full of snacks in the dressing room. But something lingered in the air, a subtle tension that Velma quickly noticed. "Did you guys notice?" she murmured, leaning toward Daphne. The tech seemed restless, and the producer is forcing a smile. The group had barely arrived, and already they could tell this wouldn't be a typical visit. A mystery was about to unfold, and they would have to act fast. The show's producer, Mr. Langley, greeted them with exaggerated enthusiasm, almost artificial. "Mystery Inc., what an honor. Come in, come in." He led them to the waiting room, where monitors showed the behind-the-scenes of the program. Fred observed the meticulous production and commented, "This place must cost a fortune to maintain." Velma, however, noticed something more intriguing. Hidden cameras were capturing every move, and discreetly placed microphones seemed to record even the smallest whispers. "They're monitoring everything," she whispered to Daphne. Langley cleared his throat, calling everyone's attention. "Velma, we'd love to have you as a special guest to talk about your deductive skills." The invitation seemed innocent, but there was something off about the gleam in the producer's eyes. When the show went live, the spotlight illuminated the stage, and the charismatic host, Elliot Starr, grabbed the audience's attention. "Today we have a special guest, Velma Dinkley, the brilliant mind behind the greatest mystery solved." Velma smiled and took her place in the center of the stage, ready to respond. But as soon as she opened her mouth, the lights flickered, and a deep sound echoed through the studio. On the giant screens, a ghostly image appeared, a grotesque and distorted face, its voice reverberating like thunder. "No more mysteries! Talk business!" A collective scream filled the studio as Velma vanished in a cloud of dense smoke. "Velma!" Fred shouted, jumping from his seat. Daphne grabbed his arm tightly. "We need to figure out where she went." Shaggy and Scooby exchanged looks, already regretting agreeing to the visit. Panic swept through the studio. Mr. Langley tripped over cables as he tried to contain the chaos. This wasn't in the script," he stammered. Fred clenched his fists. "So someone's improvising, and we'll find out who." The gang split up. Fred and Daphne headed backstage, while Shaggy and Scooby, reluctantly, were assigned to check out the props room. "Why do they always send us to the creepy places?" Shaggy grumbled. The smell of powder and aged fabric filled the air as they explored. Scooby sniffed something and pointed to a chest full of costumes resembling the ghostly apparition. "Looks like we found the ghost's wardrobe," Shaggy murmured. But that wasn't all. There was a trail of glitter on the floor, leading to the center of the stage. Meanwhile, Fred and Daphne snuck through the maze of cables and monitors backstage. Daphne, always sharp, grabbed a headset from a distracted technician and began listening to the communications. "The ghost entered early. Who authorized this?" An agitated voice questioned. Fred followed the cables connected to the studio lights and found clear signs of sabotage. "This was planned," he murmured. Meanwhile, Shaggy and Scooby followed the glitter trail to a locked door beneath the stage. Row, Scooby pointed, sniffing. "Do you think we should open it?" Shaggy asked, his voice trembling. But before they could decide, the door creaked and opened by itself, revealing a dimly lit staircase. The gang was about to dive deep into the heart of the mystery. The narrow staircase led to an underground corridor, where the lights flickered faintly, casting dancing shadows on the concrete walls. Fred led the way, closely followed by Daphne, while Shaggy and Scooby hesitated, exchanging fearful glances. "I don't like this one bit," Shaggy whispered, his voice trembling. Scooby moaned in agreement but had no time to flee as Fred pushed open the door at the end of the corridor. Behind it, a cramped room filled with broadcasting equipment revealed itself, monitors showing various angles of the studio. In the center of the room, a swivel chair sat empty, still spinning slightly. "Someone was here just a few seconds ago," observed Velma, picking up a crumpled script from the floor. "Look at this. The ghost's appearance was planned." Daphne flipped through the pages quickly, her eyes widening. Here's the exact schedule for the scares and Velma's disappearance. This confirms Langley was involved, but not alone. Fred crossed his arms, deep in thought, which means we still haven't found the real culprit. Meanwhile, Scooby sniffed at a vest tossed on a table. "Raggy, Rook!" He pulled at the fabric, revealing a studio badge. Shaggy swallowed hard as he read the name. Elliot Starr? The host of the show? Daphne nodded. Makes sense. Who else would have unrestricted access to the stage and could orchestrate something this elaborate? Velma adjusted her glasses. But why? We need more evidence before confronting him. Suddenly, an intermittent noise caught the group's attention. One of the monitors displayed a grainy image from Elliot's dressing room camera. The screen trembled, but it clearly showed the host talking to someone off frame. "We need to stick to the plan, or we'll lose the chance to save the show." His voice echoed through the speakers. "Velma has served our purpose. Now we need something bigger for the grand finale." Shaggy choked on his breath. "This is bad." Fred pointed at the screen. "If we want to expose him, we have to act fast. Let's head to the dressing room before he realizes we're one step ahead." Crossing the dark corridors, the gang reached the door to Elliot's dressing room. Fred motioned for everyone to stay silent before carefully opening the door. The dressing room was in chaos, papers scattered, and a red velvet curtain covering something bulky in the corner of the room. Daphne approached and pulled back the curtain, revealing a projection screen connected to a computer. "Here's the ruse," she said, analyzing the cables. They were projecting the ghost directly onto the stage. Velma quickly typed on the keyboard, accessing the files. "Here are the program codes and the full script. This proves that Elliot didn't just know. He orchestrated everything." Shaggy looked at the door, concerned. "We've got what we need. Now, can we get out of here before?" Before he could finish the sentence, a loud sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor. Elliot Starr was coming. Fred looked around quickly and pointed to a spacious cabinet. "Everyone in now?" Whispering, they squeezed into the tight space just as the dressing room door swung open violently. Elliot entered, out of breath, followed by Mr. Langley. "We have a problem," Langley said. "Mystery Inc. is sniffing around. We need to accelerate the plan." Elliot clenched his fists. "Then let's make sure they have a final destination in the next act." Inside the cabinet, Daphne squeezed Fred's hand. They needed to act now. The mystery was closer to being solved, but the danger had never been greater. Inside the cramped cabinet, the group's hearts raced. Fred kept a watchful eye through the crack in the door, while Elliot Starr and Mr. Langley argued. "We can't wait any longer. If we don't do something now, we're finished," growled Elliot. "Do you think they've figured it out?" Langley asked, sweating. "They know too much already," the host replied, crossing his arms. Velma exchanged a meaningful look with Daphne. "We have to get out of here before they catch us," she whispered. Shaggy and Scooby just nodded, trembling in fear. Fred motioned for everyone to be ready. As soon as Langley turned his back, he pushed the door forcefully, making it slam against the wall. "Run," he ordered. The group burst out of the dressing room, racing down the corridor. Elliot shouted something unintelligible, and heavy footsteps echoed behind them. "Quick, this way!" Daphne pointed to a side staircase leading to the upper floor of the studio. Shaggy and Scooby were the first to climb, stumbling over each other. Velma gripped the railing firmly, while Fred helped Daphne up. "We need to find a way to expose them," Velma said, adjusting her glasses. Fred nodded. "We need definitive proof, and a way to broadcast it live." Scooby sniffed something and barked, pointing at a control panel. "Rook!" The dog was indicating a lever that controlled the studio's live transmissions. The group gathered around the panel. "If we can access the cameras and play the files we found, we can expose everything to the public," Velma reasoned, typing quickly. The system was complex, but Velma, with her usual cunning, navigated the menus with efficiency. "Here it is, the videos that show the ghost scam." Time was running out. Langley and Elliot were getting closer. Daphne grabbed a headset and spoke into the microphone connected to the transmission system. "Attention, audience. We have a shocking revelation about tonight's events." The sound echoed through the entire studio. Shaggy and Scooby exchanged nervous glances. "Oh man, this is going to make them really mad," Shaggy murmured. Elliot and Langley burst through the door just as the giant screens in the studio began to broadcast the files. The audience, once confused, now saw the irrefutable evidence of the program's manipulation. "No, this is a lie," Elliot screamed. But the images clearly showed his involvement in staging the ghost and Velma's disappearance. The studio's security exchanged glances and advanced toward the two conspirators. "I think your television career is over," Fred commented, crossing his arms. Langley, pale, tried to flee, but Daphne stuck out her leg and tripped him. "Oops, what a shame," she teased. The audience, now informed of the truth, began to boo as security escorted Elliot and Langley out. Velma turned off the panel, satisfied. "Another mystery solved," she said. Shaggy sighed in relief. "And finally, no more fake ghosts?" Scooby jumped into his lap, barking excitedly. "Rhea, no more!" Daphne smiled and adjusted her hair. "I think we saved the show by a hair's breadth." Fred put his hands on his hips. "Now, how about we go celebrate?" Shaggy raised a finger. "As long as there's food involved." They all laughed and headed for the studio exit. Once again, the truth triumphed, and Mystery Inc. proved that no mystery was too big for them. The group left the studio victorious, but the feeling that something was still not right lingered in the air. Fred furrowed his brow as he stared at the darkened screens. Langley and Elliot were just the tip of the iceberg. Someone else is behind this. Velma adjusted her glasses and nodded. "Exactly. The production of this kind of scam requires more than just two people. We need to go back and investigate more thoroughly." Daphne ran a hand through her hair and sighed. "I knew it wasn't going to be that easy." Shaggy and Scooby exchanged worried glances. "You're saying there's still more mystery?" Shaggy asked, already anticipating the worst. Scooby nodded, a shiver running through his body. Returning to the studio, Mystery Inc. noticed that the technical crew's movements were unusually calm. Nervous glances and whispers indicated that something was still being hidden. Velma pulled Fred aside. "Let's pretend we're leaving but actually sneak around the set." Fred nodded and led the gang to a side exit. Daphne picked up a script tossed on the floor and frowned. "These instructions don't belong to any episode I know." She showed it to Velma, who immediately recognized what was wrong. "This is an unauthorized broadcast." Fred looked around, alert. "If they're planning another trick, we need to stop them before they pull it off." Following a transmission cable that shouldn't have been there, the group discovered a hidden room in the studio's basement. Inside, monitors were still flickering with images that seemed to be a rehearsal for something big. In the center of the room, a mysterious figure was working at a computer. "We've got company," Velma whispered. Fred gently pushed the door open and stepped in firmly. "It's over for you." The figure spun around quickly, revealing herself to be a production assistant the gang had seen before in the backstage area. "You don't understand. I was just following orders," she exclaimed. Daphne crossed her arms. "Orders from who?" The assistant hesitated, but Velma was already typing something into the computer. "We've got everything we need right here." In the files, it became clear that the scheme was much bigger than they initially thought. The entire show was being manipulated by a corporation trying to artificially inflate the audience numbers. "This is huge," Velma murmured. They were planning fake scandals and staged mysteries to keep the audience hooked on the show. Fred turned to the assistant. "Did you know you were deceiving millions of viewers?" The woman lowered her head. "I had no choice. If I said anything, I would lose everything." Daphne sighed. "Well, now everyone will know." Shaggy looked at Scooby. "Man, and I thought a simple snack could fix everything." Scooby mumbled, "Ruh-roh, big problem." With the evidence collected, the gang activated the studio's live transmissions and aired the files, revealing the grand scheme to everyone. The audience watched in shock as the involvement in the scandals was exposed. Security arrived to apprehend the culprits, and Mystery Inc.'s name echoed with respect among the viewers. "Another mystery solved," Fred declared. Velma turned off the system and smiled. "This time, we made sure the truth wasn't manipulated." Daphne adjusted her hair, satisfied, and thankfully no ghosts this time. Shaggy and Scooby hugged, relieved. "You know what this means?" Shaggy said excitedly. "Time for a mega sandwich." Scooby barked in approval. With the mystery unraveled and the truth revealed, Mystery Inc. moved on to their next adventure, leaving yet another scheme exposed. With the mystery practically solved, Mystery Inc. left the studio under the watchful eyes of the remaining technicians and producers. The night was cool, and the feeling of relief was palpable. "That was intense," said Daphne, adjusting her hair. "But I still feel like something doesn't add up." Velma, who had been walking with her eyes fixed on the ground, stopped abruptly. "Exactly. The real masterminds behind this scheme still haven't shown themselves." Fred crossed his arms, thoughtful. If the show was being manipulated, who was really profiting from this? Shaggy and Scooby, who were already looking forward to a late-night snack, exchanged anxious glances. "You're saying there's more danger ahead?" Shaggy asked, his voice trembling. The gang decided to return to the studio, once again, to investigate the last clues. As they entered the silent hallways, they noticed a room that had been locked before was now slightly open. Fred led the investigation, pushing the door slowly. Inside, they found piles of documents, rolls of film, and a large board with notes pinned by red pushpins. "This looks like a very detailed plan," said Velma, picking up one of the sheets. "Here are the names of the show's main sponsors, and all of them are marked with strange codes." Daphne approached. These codes seemed connected to the audience numbers. Maybe the financiers were behind the manipulation. Fred nodded. "We need more evidence to connect everything." As they rummaged through the documents, a sound echoed down the hallway. Quick footsteps were approaching. "Someone's coming," Shaggy whispered, looking for a hiding spot. Scooby pointed to under a table, and the two crouched there. Fred quickly turned off the lights and pulled Daphne and Velma into a corner. The door swung open violently, and a tall, well-dressed man entered, speaking on the phone. "Yes, Langley and Elliot were pawns. Now that they've been exposed, we need a new plan to save our investors." The firm, calculating voice revealed the true mind behind the scheme. Velma pulled a small recorder from her pocket and started recording the conversation. The man kept talking, unaware that he was being recorded. "If they find out we manipulated the results to benefit our sponsors, we're done for. We made sure the show stayed relevant, and in return, the sponsors invested heavily." Daphne looked at Fred, who was already formulating a plan. "We have his confession. Now we need to make sure everyone sees this." The man finally hung up the phone and turned to leave, but a noise caught his attention. Shaggy, while trying to shift under the table, accidentally knocked over a roll of film. "What was that?" the man asked, suspicious. Before he could investigate, Fred signaled to the gang. "Time to move." With a leap, Scooby jumped onto the room's light switch, turning the lights on. Fred and Daphne blocked the exit while Velma held the recorder in hand. "We've got it all on tape. You're finished," she said, determined. The man paled, trying to argue. "This means nothing." But before he could continue, the door opened again, and several reporters, alerted by the security system, entered. "It does mean something, and the whole world will know," Fred said. The studio security arrived shortly after, escorting the man into custody. Once again, Mystery Inc. ensured the truth was revealed. "Mission accomplished," Daphne said. "Can we finally eat now?" Shaggy asked, drawing laughter from the group as they headed out to celebrate another mystery solved. With the case officially closed, Mystery Inc. left the studio and headed to a 24-hour restaurant nearby. The atmosphere among them was one of relief and satisfaction. "Finally, a mystery solved without real ghosts," Velma commented, adjusting her glasses. Daphne smiled, still feeling the adrenaline. "And one of the biggest we've ever faced? It was more than just a rating scam. It was a multi-million-dollar scheme." Fred crossed his arms and looked at Shaggy and Scooby, who were already drooling at the thought of a giant snack. "And we couldn't have done it without everyone's talents." The waiter approached to take their orders, and it came as no surprise that Shaggy and Scooby ordered 3 dishes each. While they waited for their food, Fred reviewed the final pieces of the puzzle. With the arrest of the real mastermind, the network can finally restart without fraudulent manipulation. Daphne nodded. "And the public will know that everything they watched was a lie created to generate profits." Velma smiled. "And all thanks to a certain group of investigators." Scooby barked excitedly. "Rhea," Shaggy sighed in relief. "Good thing we don't have to hide in closets anymore." The group laughed, and the relaxed mood replaced all the tension from the past few hours. The food arrived, and Shaggy and Scooby attacked their plates as if they hadn't eaten in days. As the night came to an end, the gang returned to the mystery machine, ready to hit the road again. "What's next?" Daphne asked, adjusting her jacket. Fred shrugged. Wherever a mystery appears, we'll be there. Velma checked a map, reflecting on their next destinations. There are rumors about strange disappearances in a nearby town. Maybe we should take a look. Shaggy groaned, crossing his arms. Can't we take a vacation first? Scooby nodded, agreeing. Rhea, vacation. Fred laughed. Maybe we can find a mystery on a paradise beach. Who knows? As they drove down the road, the radio reported the latest developments in the scandal at the network. Viewers remained shocked by the revelations of fraud on the popular television show. Thanks to the investigation of a group of young detectives, the truth has come to light. Velma smiled. Our work never goes unnoticed. Daphne looked out the window, appreciating the city lights in the distance. But it also never ends. Fred drove confidently, ready for the next adventure. Shaggy, reclining in the back seat, was already dozing off with Scooby by his side, both content and exhausted. The mystery machine disappeared down the road, leaving behind another solved mystery. As the moonlight illuminated the path, the group felt that familiar mix of satisfaction and anticipation. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together, Fred said, his voice firm. Velma adjusted her glasses. With logic and science, Daphne smiled. And with style, Shaggy mumbled sleepily. And with food, Scooby smiled. Rhea, food! They all laughed, and the road kept taking them forward, ready for the next challenge, wherever it may be.